Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them, and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month, and we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Anita, you look like you are done.
I am done, and you look like you're a unicorn.
Yes, I am a unicorn, in fact, a pink one right now.
Is that a hooded towel?
I think so. Somebody gave it to me when my dad died, and it has arm mittens.
Ooh,
So, yeah,
it looks very fluffy and nice.
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should we talk about why you are done, or do you want to talk about how I did a gig last night and I actually had fun?
Ooh, let's talk about both. But talk
Okay.
about your gig. Or maybe, yeah, talk about your gig.
Okay. So, as you all know, I've been having goals to not leave my basement and then realized that's probably unhealthy. So, I have other smaller goals to leave the basement. But I have a complicated music relationship since it's been my job for so long. And I've had a hard time wanting to do gigs and stuff like that again. So, but I accepted a gig from my friend that played at my dad's quote retirement/funeral party that we did. And it's a group I've played with for a while. And I have to admit, I didn't want to do it because it involved getting ready and leaving and talking to people. But I went, and it was actually one of the best gigs of my entire life. And everybody played well. It was so fun. We had great instruments, and I could hear. That's such a big part of performing, is if you cannot hear well, it is your whole experience. So, or part of it. So I had a lot of fun, and I was surprised I played great.
Good job.
I mean, I usually try and play great, but when you're doing jazz and you're doing improv, you never know what's going to come out because it's in the moment. And it just was actually a joy to play. So this is my announcement to the world that I had fun.
Yay, I clapped for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yesterday I had this thought. I was like, instruments are weird. Like, why are the ones we have invented and why aren't there more?
Anita, I could answer all those questions because we talk about that when we get music degrees. Did you know the bagpipes used to be called a sack butt?
Yeah, I'm a fan.
I'm pleasantly surprised that I had a good experience because I was kind of feeling a little bit heavy yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, here's where I'm done. Why I'm done. I am sick and tired of being the only person on my team and feeling like I am trying to play the entire game with 4 children who are on the opposite team of me. That's the basic analysis of my life. I just had a day yesterday where I was just like, can you guys not help me? I mean, is it such a strange concept to like work together? And apparently it is. And then my stupid fire alarm, my smoke detector was beeping, and I could not make it stop beeping, and I wanted to hit it with a hammer. Instead, I threw a plastic plate, and I hit myself in the foot, and it hurt. And then I felt stupid because I lost my temper, and I threw a plate. And that's all. So this morning, I am abstaining from parenting. We usually get up and go to church. I laid in bed. My kids are like, Mom, what are you doing? And I'm like, don't talk to me.
You had your own rage room.
Yeah, but it was stupid because I
yourself.
I hurt my own foot.
Obviously, it's Sunday because when we record this portion on Sundays, it is a bad day.
But Saturday was my bad day. Saturday is usually an okay day because I get to go for a long run. But on my long run, my kids kept calling me because one of my kids was raging, having his own rage room, and was like throwing things. And I had to tell my kids, I'm like, you just need to leave. Like, you need to leave him inside, close the door, and just like get away from him. I was so far away, I couldn't get back to solve the problem. And I was like, once again, it would be nice to have some backup and not be the only one who can deal with a kid who is trying to attack people. So,
I can say I don't relate. I have 0 kids.
Yeah.
But
I have 0 unicorn blankets. So,
yeah.
There you go.
But I can offer advice in the form of orphanage.
Yeah, that might be something that needs to happen. I might need to check myself into the inpatient psych unit for a few weeks. Actually, I think what I really need to do is go to Tampa.
Yeah, that's coming up. I think you're going to really, really enjoy when that happens so you can have a break. Anita, like, you come out of your widowed mom cocoon when we go out of town, and it's like a sight to behold.
Mm-hmm. It's because I only have to worry about me, and nobody is trying to screw me over all the time. I mean, it sounds like I'm being a little bit exaggerating a lot, but I think that the widowed parents out there will be able to see eye to eye with me that sometimes you do feel like it's an exaggerated hell. By the way, here's an irony. At Camp Widow, I've been asked to be on the parenting panel.
Anita, okay, you cannot just go in there and be like, you guys, everything sucks. You need to offer advice if you can, or be quiet.
I said to the person who asked me, I said, you realize I'm like a disaster. And she was like, we like to represent real experiences. So, okay, we'll see what happens. Hopefully I'll be out of my angry solo parent cocoon at that point in time and can offer advice. So there you go.
Well, because I have no experience, I can take your picture and document it.
Excellent.
I want to know if they ever do anything for kidless widows, because there's parents have a lot of different and stressful circumstances that kidless widows do not. We deal with isolation. So I wonder if they'll ever do they do anything like that? Represent us!
I know that they do, like, we have a widow for that. I know they have that as one of the categories. I don't know if they have a panel for that or not.
Probably not, because we don't speak up, because we feel like we don't count as much because we don't have a, quote, family. But
quote, the Raven, nevermore.
Have you seen The Righteous Gemstones? It's the best.
Oh no, you keep telling me to watch that and I keep forgetting.
It's been giving me life. Our moms would not approve. There's a lot of swearing in it. Okay. It's on HBO. So, but it is so funny to me. So there's some funny stuff in there. It might help you deal with your anger.
Maybe. Or just throwing plates at my own foot. please tell me I'm not alone, you guys. Please, please, please tell me that I am not alone, because it is really isolating and really hard to feel like you have no backup, and then to also feel like you're failing hardcore. And then you send your kid to school crying one day. It's all fine. It's all fine. So come to Camp Widow. Who's coming to Camp Widow? Don't say that, Anita. That's a dumb thing to say. I'm done. You say stuff.
I think, Anita, you need a long nap and a trip to Campa. A trip to Campa?
Yeah, that's Camp Widow in Tampa. Yeah.
Everybody, you can follow Anita's personal Instagram, Racing from the Ashes, if you would like. You can see all the shenanigans on why she hates her life and why sometimes it's hilarious. And then if you're a kidless widow and you need support and you're scared to comment on anybody's thing, you can direct message me. Because that's how us kidless widows rule.
Mel's like, you can follow my Instagram, but I don't post every day. So just message me, but not weirdo things.
Yeah, don't be a creeper. Well, but it's like when we post stuff as kidless widows, the comments that we get are, you don't understand what it's like because you don't have kids. And we're like, I know. Or it's like, well, you can just go get another person and go make your own kids. And I want to say F you to those people. That's how strongly I feel about it. Don't make so there's a reason. Kids. I'm not. No way. I have dogs. But yeah. So you might not see as much representation from the kidless widow side because we deal with a lot of other things. So if you are one of me, still message me. I feel you and see you. And if you're a widowed mom, go follow Anita. She needs some friends. I'm not helpful because I just tell her to give them away.
Yeah. So come join us in the Facebook group, the Widow Wives Club. We are growing, and it's a really safe and amazing space. I belong to a lot of Facebook widows groups just because I like to kind of see what's happening in the other groups and, hear other people's experiences. And I'm not biased or anything, but ours is the best. Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
We do have really funny memes in there. I think we had a really good one this week. Did you see it? It was the name a band after a food.
I was surprised at how many people were on it. My brain was sparking and making whirring noises and nothing came out.
Props to our creative friends in the group. That was so fun. Hey, we actually have a couple things coming up this weekend. One of which is the Zoom hangs that we usually do, except this time Autumn is not able to run the group. So we have a guest facilitator.
Or facilitators.
To be announced. It's happening. We will post the Zoom link in the events tab within the Widow Wives Club, so you can look for it there. And the other thing we have going on, Anita, tell us.
Sunday, which is March 13th, Tani Plattis is going to be giving our Widow Wives Club a personal comedy set via Zoom. Should be really fun.
Tani has started a nonprofit for widow support. So if you are into helping other widows, check out her set. It's free, but you can donate via Venmo as far as tips. And it looks to be really fun. We've already had a lot of response in the group that are super stoked that she's doing this. So thanks, Tani, and thanks for everything that you're doing for the widows.
That link will also be posted in the Widow Wives Club. So, and just a reminder that Sunday is the beginning of daylight savings time. So for those who live in a place that abides by that, just keep that in mind as you're scheduling.
This will be 6:30 Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific Daylight Time.
Oh, I never even learned the difference in school. Okay. Whatever time Pacific time is at the time, it is 6:30.
Just say Pacific time.
But if you check the event in Facebook, it should adjust for you. So you don't even have to think. Hey, one thing that I forgot to mention, this happened earlier in the week. My husband, Scott, who is no longer alive, used to live in Ukraine, in the Chernobyl area. And so we have friends and family over there and have been communicating with them as far as what's going on, how can we help. And I posted this in the Widow Wives Club, and I will continue to keep people posted as I have updates. But people have reached out to ask how we can help the widows of Ukraine. A lot of the people don't even know that they're widows yet because people are fighting. It's kind of a really terrible, horrible situation. I know. And so I'm waiting for word from the people over there that I know that also have family members in key cities that are under attack, of how the widows can help. It might be mostly emotional support. I have no news to share, but I wanted you guys to know that we are not turning a blind eye to what's going on in Eastern Europe, and that we are doing our best to keep posted on what's happening so that we can help the best we can. So thank you again to everyone for caring about all the widows all over the world. Stupid!
Everything sucks.
We could make the world less hard if we were less jerks. Not us. We're awesome.
Absolutely. All right, guys, if you want to keep the podcast going, will you check out our Patreon? It's patreon.com/WWDN. It's just a way for you to provide support for the content we are making for you. It's a recurring monthly donation. We have 4 different tiers with different benefits for each tier.
Starting at just $5 per month. But when you sign up at the level of Widow Bestie, which is $10 a month and up, you get a shout out in episode. We are going to do that right now. We're going to start with our secret dead husband, who does not want to be named, and she says, "Man, I feel like a widow."
Next we have Constance Dahlbeck,
David Kelly,
Dawn Satterwhite,
Ivan the Misner,
Cat,
Krista Taco Waite,
Sam Finlayson,
Amy Hartman Martell,
Amy Neal,
Amy Sapp,
Ashley Han,
Brittany Pedro,
Chris Steffen,
Christina Shiflett,
Danielle Catterberg,
Not a Debbie Downer,
Dennis Brozo.
No,
Dennis Brozo. Can I say it? Dennis
because
Brozo.
we've just said it so many times.
Dennis
Brozo. Brazo. Dennis Brazo. Heidi Hayward.
Jean Marie Massey.
Jenny Taylor.
Jennifer Beal.
Jennifer Brown.
Jennifer Hassel.
Jenny Wang.
Kathy Murray.
Kelly Ford.
Kirsten Stromberg Clausen.
Flora Bradbury.
Lauren Old.
Leslie Webb.
Marie Hoffman.
M.K. Anderson.
Missy Schubert.
Rachel Barbosa.
Whoop, whoop. Sarah Morris.
Sue Golek.
Sylvia Shore.
Taylor Snyder.
The Winehouse Karen Cornejo.
Vicky Spitt.
Go Stand Upon the Moors. Anna Tracy.
Christina Scambato.
Christine Anderson.
Cindy Raynaud.
Dawn Barber.
Debbie Fells.
Deborah Westwood.
Diana Becker.
Emily Toledo.
Eric Vandermeulen.
Aaron Posick.
Gabe Lozano.
Gia Benoit.
Gina Haas.
Ian Seedy.
Ileana Bell Ruiz.
Jackie.
The Jane.
Jenny Armstrong.
Jenny Barrow.
Jocelyn Milo.
Julie Stevenson.
Karina Jacobo.
Katie Radcliffe.
Kara Scara.
Chris Morgan.
Laura Keeley.
Lindsay Konopka.
Lori Farrington.
Marjorie Lewis.
Mary McGowan.
Megan Montague.
Melissa Bowers.
Melissa Hancock.
Peter Rukavina.
Becky Zyba.
Sarah Kennedy.
Stacey Saywert.
Sunshine on My Haven.
Makes Me Tammy Terravist.
Tara Wallace.
Valerian Cross Country Route Packer III.
And finally, we have IKEA Plate Wendy.
Is that what you threw at yourself?
Yep.
Thanks for everybody who contributes. If you would not like to be a patron but would like to help support the podcast, please consider buying us tacos at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And if you don't want to do any of those things, just leave us a nice rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We appreciate all of the ways you guys support us. Thank you.
If you hate us, just don't write anything. That's how we know.
With that, Mel, should we get into our episode?
Yep. This is a good one. We learned a lot about widow research from an actual widow.
This is exciting. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel, the unicorn.
We're two widows, one who's a unicorn, one who's done. And we are just trying to help you guys and us figure out widow
we
do
now. This episode is brought to you by the Misner Family Foundation in memory of Elisabeth Misner.
Mel, can I introduce our new guest?
Yes, I know that we've been looking forward to this for a while, so please tell me and everyone what's about to happen.
Here's the funny thing. I don't actually know that much about this person, but when we were at Camp Widow, I was in one of the sessions. I don't even remember what one, but they kind of made reference to one of the people up on the panel and about how she was an expert in resilience. And I was like, we must find her and find out what she knows. So we tracked her down. There was a bloodhound involved, the FBI. We even had to get the NSA and the CIA involved, but we have her here now. So we have with us today, Carrie West, who we're so excited to talk to. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. Thanks for having me, guys.
So resilience, eh?
Resilience, exactly.
I love that. That is such a fascinating area of psychology and all of those things. So how long have you been involved in studying this?
So I started studying resilience in 2008 when I started working on my PhD. I was widowed when I was 29 years old, the night before my 29th birthday, and I had a couple little kids, and I just did not, I wasn't finding the resources that I needed. And I was being grouped in with people who didn't have the same lived experience that I did, as far as, they didn't have little kids. Or when therapists sent me to a newly single group, guess who's in that group? People who didn't like their spouse that much usually, and they're divorced. It was just all filled with divorced people. And so I thought, I'm going to take a class at my local college. I was living in Greeley, Colorado. And so I took the class on family communication. And I thought, we do know things that can help people, but it's just not getting out there. Like, how do we get it from here to there? And so that's kind of when I started.
So can we back up and hear a little bit about your widowhood experience, since you're in our same stupid club of death? Will you tell us about your person and about what happened?
Sure. I was Shane West was my husband's name, and we had been married 3 years, and he did financial planning, and he was coming home kind of late in the evening in Colorado in February, as it does sometimes. It had been 70 degrees during the day, and then we had a snowstorm, which means in between it rains and then freezes. You guys know how that goes, right? And then you get snow on top of it.
We're doing that right now.
Oh no. So he was involved in a single car accident. He just hit some black ice and flipped his car and didn't come home on time. And, so I started calling around and nobody knew anything. And then one person said, actually, can you hold, please? The coroner is trying to find your house. And then first she said, oh, no, I can't release any information until the next of kin is notified. And I was like, what? And then she was like, wait, who is this? Oh, and then she put me on hold.
Oh my gosh.
Because she realized that she thought I was like a reporter or something. And then she came back on and said, the coroner's trying to find your house, but I can't tell you anything over the phone. And I was like, well.
Obviously, the coroner doesn't look for living, or doesn't need to deal with living matters.
Right. So they, but thing was, we were, as I said, we were married for 3 years. And so, but we did have, I had a child before I met him. And then we had a child together who was almost a year and a half. So I had a 1.5-year-old and a almost 7-year-old. And, he was just full of life. And then suddenly he was gone, and we had all these plans and they were gone. And as I said, so then I went to school. So I was trying to, first I was in a daze for a little while. And then I thought, I'm going to go, people keep telling me, oh, you're, at risk for depression. You're at risk for blah, blah. I'll think all the bad things. I'm like, thanks for making me feel so much better. And then they sent me to a newly single group. People kept dropping off books. I don't know if that happened for you all. I have a 1.5-year-old child and a 6-year-old child. When do you think I'm sitting around reading? I'm like, I think I'll read about grief tonight. I mean, I know that that's really good for some people, but I just had like piles and piles of books in my house that I just never had time to read and felt guilty about not reading them. And then, so then I took this class in family communication and thought, okay, we do have resources out there. I want to know, what are people doing who are moving through this gracefully? If there is, I don't even know if that's a thing, but stop telling me about all the things they can't do. Let's tell people what they can do, because it turns out resilience can be learned. It can be developed. It's not something you're born with or you don't have or whatever, but we can learn it and we can teach it. And so let's teach people how to deal with these things, because, heads up, about half of us will have to deal with losing ourselves, right? I mean, that's just the math.
So were you in school before, or you went back to school entirely to find this stuff out?
I went back to school entirely to find this. So I started over. So I'm 29 years old, sitting in a college classroom and with all my little freshmen, and was a little intimidated to go back to school. I had started in engineering originally. Then I dropped out after a couple of years. I had a pretty good job. And then when Shane and I had Holden, I quit and stayed home with him for a little bit and had not gone back to work yet when Shane passed away. And so I just totally started over and took this communication class and thought, well, I guess I'll take a few more classes. And then I just kept going. I got my master's degree and I just couldn't get enough of it,
So what did you get your master's in?
In communication studies, interpersonal and family communication.
Is that something similar to like what an LMFT would pursue, like kind of that direction?
Similar, but so I would say communication is kind of applied social psych. I mean, that's a very broad brush, but it's really, it's not clinical. So the stuff I study isn't clinical and wouldn't be used in therapy, but more the social scientist perspective on it, and how do we understand humans and how do we interact with each other?
So I'm curious, do you want to just start by telling us what is resilience? I think we've all heard that word, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah, that is such a good question, because you cannot, pull up social media or pull up the news or, without hearing the word resilience. And it gets kind of used interchangeably with thriving and persistence and all kinds of things. So they're a little bit different. So the distinction I make is resilience is you're bouncing back to the same level of functioning that you were at before, but you're never bouncing back to the same place, right? Because we can never be in the same place twice in our lives. And you're a different person because your past has changed you. But resilience is being able to return to that level of functioning. Persistence is being able to stick with it when you get knocked down. And thriving is when you are doing even better than you were before. But that's one of the areas I really like to study is post-traumatic growth. And, it turns out a few years after we're widowed, a good number of widowed people will say, in some ways, I feel stronger. I feel more capable. Now, this isn't how I wanted to get there, right? If they were like, okay, guess what? You can feel stronger. Here's what you have to do. No, thank you. But so that's so resilience is really bouncing back, but coming back to that level of functioning is really what I'm looking at.
Like functional elasticity.
Yeah. I always think of it too, kind of like silly putty. Remember how, are you guys old enough to even remember silly putty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, you like do you get the print or whatever of silly putty and you get the comic or whatever that you're like getting out of the newspaper, right? And you have this picture and then it gets all smushed up. because life happens and it's trauma and it gets stretched out of shape and it's, but it kind of still is all there with it and it bounces back and you can literally bounce it, and it takes it with it. And so it has all of these, that ink is still there, that picture is still there, it's out of shape. But then eventually we kind of work it back into our lives and we make a new picture. We just keep doing that. I don't know.
Yeah. So how did you collect the data that you use to study this topic? And those things all sound like they're closely interrelated, they're not separate entities, but there are a few distinctions in what each one means. But how did you find out the information that you needed for your dissertation?
So I just happened to be, because the first group I went to before the newly single group was hospice, which was just full of older adults. None of them had children. And so I happened to be reading an article in USA Today, and it was close to, and I was thinking about my topic. And they had done an article on Camp Widow. And there was a quote in there from who I now know was Dana, director of operations, but I didn't know her yet. And she said almost the same thing, that she went into this room and people were all older or something. And then they, she couldn't find her people. She couldn't find people to talk to who understood what she was going through because she couldn't find a good support network. And that's what Camp Widow is. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are my people. Where are they? I have to find them. And so I think I just emailed, like from the website, I just emailed Michelle F. Hernandez and said, hey, here's what I want to do my dissertation on. I want people to see that widows are strong and capable and resilient, and and I want to teach widows how to be that way. And that's what I'd want to do my research on. Can I come collect data? And she said, I don't think so. We don't usually do that, But then we talked about it and eventually came to some agreements about how, she's just protective, as she should be, because there are people out there, and I didn't even think about this, who are like, ooh, they're all in one place. Let's go study them, So
let's poke their little brains.
So anyway, we talked about it a lot. I was was the day before my dissertation proposal defense. So it's a little stressful. I'm living in Denver. I'm going to school at DU, University of Denver. And I just did the boulder with my kids. And Michelle, I'm getting a text from her. I have a question about something that we need to clear up before you propose. The day before. So I'm like I'm like propped up on a hill after the boulder, kept calling her and talking to her for about an hour. We were just working through some final details, some of the wording, interesting, which kind of led to some of the research. Some of the wording is so awkward. So anyway, then she let me come collect data there the first time. And I just set up a table. So you guys have been there. Like, I just set up a table and said, hey, come help me tell the story about widowed people, and had a little raffle. And that's how I started. So, yeah.
So did you have a survey? Because there are different methods of research, right? There's in-depth interviewing, there's surveys. What did you do?
It was a survey. I was specifically looking at social support, hope, rumination, and life satisfaction related to resilience. And so I collected data on all of those things. It was all survey data. I did a little structural equation modeling, and found that all of these things are contributing to resilience except social support, which that was the only thing that was not significant in my first study.
Really?
Yeah, I was also surprised because we know that that's not true.
Can we talk about that? Because it's so weird, because we found that, and now I know that resiliency is maybe different from some other markers, but when we talk to people about other widows being supportive, they mention that as the number one thing that's helped them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why? Tell us.
I know. So then, research, one of the things I like about research is you have a question and you get some answers, which just makes you have more questions. And you're like, what the heck? Why would this not, So I think part of it was, and I've done research since then that it's confirmed that social support absolutely is key to resilience. It's just that my very first I was like, what? And so that's why I told Michelle, okay, well, when I come back to deliver these results, I want to collect more data on social support, because what I used, I don't think what I was using was asking how many people you had for social support. And I don't think that has anything to do with it. We know, it has to do with who you have, what
quality.
So quality I was measuring quantity, rookie move, I was new. So then we came back and I just asked people questions about social support. And then I came back and did more research on social support. And then I came back and showed those results the next year and continued on looking at post-traumatic growth and life satisfaction and hope in people who were using resources from soaring spirits from other places, who had social support, and kind of just kept building. And then we eventually that kind of developed into the Widowhood Resilience Scale that we just published in 2019 are you ready for the name of this journal?
Yes, I'm so excited.
The Journal of Omega, the Journal of Death and Dying.
Oh my gosh, I read stuff from that.
I feel like it should be like a booming voice, that comes out. That's it.
The Omega, Death and the Journal of Death and Dying. How's that?
Tell us about that. In your studies and your research, what did you find before you got to this Widowhood Resilience Project?
So there was one study, I think it was in Canada, and it was qualitative. They were about younger Canadian widows, I think is actually even in the title of it. Then also just looking at the family, like literature on family and some of it on divorce and resilience, and kind of trying to pull all of that together, that when somebody loses a spouse at 90, that's different than if somebody loses a spouse at 25, because that's a non-normative event. It happens out of order, and it's therefore more traumatic. So much of the research, though, is all done on an older population or only married, usually middle class. So, or the resilience literature even is like very focused on a deficit model. Like, oh, guess what? If you're widowed, then here are all the things that you're more likely to happen to you now. Congratulations. You had the one bad thing happen, and now you're more likely to have these other things. Congratulations, welcome.
Man, so you're basically a pioneer in widowhood resilience studies, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, every time I think I've contributed to the field for sure. I think every time we just get a little bit more information out there, and it's so wonderful that I've been able to work with soaring spirits, because I have colleagues who say, how did you get 1,150 people to take this survey that when we validated the study, it was long. It took at least 20 minutes to get through the survey, 20, 30 minutes. And how did you do that? Did you have to pay them? No, they're begging me. They keep asking me, can we do it again? Do you have another one? Because we so desperately want our voices to be heard. And we want people to understand our experience. And we want people who aren't widowed to stop telling us how to do widowhood.
I came across that too. And I asked our Widow Wives Club to participate in a survey. And I was shocked that people were like, hey, if you do another one, let's break it down like this. And I would be glad if it was a longitudinal study, and I would love to participate. It's like, we just want our voices heard because nobody knows this information except the widows.
You kind of touched on this in that you said that most of the studies were deficit based, where everything is kind of like doom and gloom and your life is over basically. I feel like there is hope. And I love the idea that you are focusing on what we can do to build our resilience and how we can get there, and not just saying it's what you've got. If you've already got it, great. And if not, then sorry. But there's ways that we can improve on that. And it's just really hopeful to hear that, because I don't feel like there's a lot of hope for us, especially in the beginning times. And it means a lot more when it's coming from one of us and somebody who's done the work and done the research and says, look, I have information and this is for real. So I want to know what your studies found. Tell us all the important stuff that we need to know to be perfectly fine.
Sure, of course. So what we did is, so when I was doing my dissertation, one of the conversations that I had to have with Michelle was, I wanted to use, I think it was on the life satisfaction scale, but also there was a different resilience. And these kind of standard resilience instruments that you can use for research were asking questions like, I actively replace losses in my life. Well, if you lost something else, I don't know, that's different than if you lose your spouse. You know, just like actively replace them, right? That doesn't make you resilient. And so we weren't comfortable with, I don't want people to feel like this is what they need to be doing, first of all, to be resilient. This is not what we're trying to teach them to strive for. And so we wanted something that was more specific to the widowed people. And I just couldn't find anything that was really good. And so that's why we said, we're creating one. Let's do this ground up. So we just asked widowed people, the first part of the survey. So the first part was like, we just asked people like, okay, I just asked all these widowed people in a survey, when you see somebody being resilient, what are they doing? When you look at them and you think, I want to be resilient like them, what are they doing? What do you think of when you think of being resilient as a widowed person? What do you do when you think, hey, that was pretty resilient? You know, and we just took all of these answers from like 900 respondents, I think. And we did a thematic analysis, and we looked for the things that they had in common. Then we cross-referenced them with the literature and with I had just written some statements and said, do you agree with this is resilience or this isn't resilience? If they showed up on all three of those things, then we picked one of the wording, we picked the wording from one of those questions. So we actually took specifically the words of those widowed people and made them into a question to represent those things that were showing up in all of the places. And then that was the beginning of our scale. Then we took that and validated it with other resilience scales and life satisfaction. But it really is worded by widowed people. We just said, what do you think it is? And they told us. And then if it matched up and met all the criteria, that was a question that we had people answer and rate. And so then we even asked people at Soaring Spirits on the board and other widowed people, take a look at these questions. Do these feel like they represent resilience to you? Because we really wanted people to look at those questions and say, okay, this is what resilience looks like. If I'm trying to be more resilient, here are some things I'm trying to do. I want to be able to laugh in the moment. I want to be able to find humor in life. I don't want to be laughing all the time, but I want to have moments where I can find some humor. I feel confident grieving and not letting other people tell me how to grieve. You know, so we had specific questions that we wanted to be aspirational. And then we got it down to 25 items and put it up actually on the Soaring Spirits website and just said, come and take it. And then look at it. You have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of energy. So pick one that you're kind of lowest in. There are five categories. Pick the one you're lowest in. Here are some resources for you. Because you can't concentrate on everything at one time. So being able to integrate your person into your current life is really important. So finding ways to honor them, to honor their memory, maybe to bring traditions across, into your new life and new traditions and adapting them. So being able to integrate them to adapt those traditions for your new situation is really important. And being okay with kind of both and, right? Like, I love this person and I can love this one. It's not either or, it's like being like, okay, kind of like simultaneously holding on to these two thoughts that yes, I still love this person and I still love this person, or you're dead and I still can potentially see one of the questions says something about, I can imagine that there is a happy future for me. I can set goals. So setting goals, being able to imagine, you can't picture it now maybe, but being able to imagine that there is a positive, happy future for you, relying on the social support of other widowed people. And after time, so not right away, but after a couple of years-ish, being able to come back and help other widowed people is resilient behavior. And so not right at first, right? Because right at first, you don't need those. You also don't need those people telling you, giving you too much advice or whatever. So it changes over time, but finding your people, finding your social support team, and then eventually being able to give back that social support, getting to a place where you can trust your own decisions. You can feel like you can do the things that your spouse used to do. So figuring out ways to bring those tools that you're learning because you just had to, I don't know, plan a funeral. Well, guess what? Now you know something about event planning, or right? There you go.
Are certain people more predisposed to resiliency than others?
I think people have a different baseline for where they start. And it seems that people who are introverted struggle more. And this is something that I would like to do more research on. But I did some with personality characteristics, and it seems like people who are introverted they have a harder time reaching out for social support. And since that's so important, and kind of asking for what they need, because more interaction feels, they recharge by being alone, but you can't do that and get your social, so it kind of gets intermingled and gets mixed up. So I think there's some interesting stuff there, but everybody can grow from where they are, which I think is the headline. We all start at a different baseline, and but we all have, there's so many things that we can do to improve our resilience and to be resilient and have a positive outlook, and while still honoring our person.
That's so important for hope, for sure. And I think a lot of times when this big devastating thing happens to us, we're like, there's no hope. I'm a 35-year-old widow, and I'm going to be this way until I die. And I'm going to go to the cemetery, and I'm going to be like, well, I got 1 year down, So really, really interesting. Are there like muscles of resiliency?
Ooh, that's an interesting metaphor. I like that. Yeah, sure. And there are muscles of, I would say like one of them, so of course I'm trying to translate this a little bit into this metaphor, but I like it. So the more you practice making decisions, making your own decisions, the more you practice being able to grieve without worrying about how other people think you should be grieving, the more confidence you build. So it's self-efficacy, right? Like the more you do it and the more it turns out that it works well for you, and you have these situations where you are successful, then we keep doing it and we get stronger and we have more confidence. So we have more confidence to kind of take on more weight. I don't know if that really works, but, and so we try more, and then we build those muscles. So
can we go to Mexico and get resilience steroids? Is there a pill we can take? Is there an injection? Can we do it without any effort?
Like a shortcut?
Come on, please. Yeah, I don't want to have to put forth any effort at all.
Not that I know of, but if you find it, please let me know.
It's so interesting because as I've gone along this journey of widowhood, and I had a lot of really difficult situations before I became a widow, I just remember thinking anytime something came along, like, dang, man, like it feels like here's just another level of resistance that's being added to me. And it feels like if you can frame it in that way of this is resistance training for life, then it's a little bit easier to not, have all of the weights coming down on you and then you're pinned, under the big bar, what are they called? Barbells. So yeah, I think that's so interesting what you're studying. So what is something that really surprised you? Anything that you weren't aware of?
I mean, a lot, of course. It seems like there are so many things. I wasn't aware. I mean, I think I knew, but I wasn't aware of how specific the widow resilience experience is from some other. I mean, I should have been, right? It makes sense, but it's pretty specific, and especially compared to other losses. And I was just amazed at the community. And again, kind of that response of like, please ask us questions. We'll do interviews. We want to be heard, and nobody, you watch TV and we're not represented. And there was kind of this real enthusiasm, passion, that's like, please, you're going to tell our story. Please, please, please listen to me, because, and I felt like I was that way, but I didn't know that there were thousands and thousands of people who felt the same way. So it was kind of cool that my widowed people helped me get my degree and finish, complete this major life goal for me so that I could keep helping widowed people. So
So I have a question going back to the muscle metaphor, and I hope I can make it make sense. So if you want a muscle to grow big, if you lift little weights, you get a little bit of gain. If you lift big, huge weights, you're going to get big, huge muscles. The experience of widowhood is a big, huge weight. Like, this is not a small blip in the map of life. You know, this is a huge tornado, a huge earthquake. So do we have the opportunity to grow bigger resilience muscles than somebody who doesn't have that huge life explosion? And did that make sense?
It does make sense. I think, right, if you overload a muscle, you have micro tears, right, or whatever tears, and it grows and it gets stronger unless you overload it too much. And it breaks you, which is why there are some of these things, you start off at a different point than other people, which is why some of us handle things differently and have different strengths. But I think, yes, if you look at some of the research on post-traumatic growth, that there's a real, it's a real confidence booster, which sounds so backwards. But when you survive and you go, oh, I did this, whatever we have, this is happening. Oh, that's no big deal. I've already lived through this. So this is I used to think this was a big deal, but now I can handle this because I've already been through this. So I think we do. And I think a lot of that comes from that growth and that confidence that comes from navigating such a big hit and being able to, or weight, and being able to handle it. And then you think, oh, okay, I can do this, so if somebody else throws something else at me, I have more confidence to be able to do that. And if you're never tested, you don't know what your you don't know what your strengths are. You don't know where that's going to come from in your resources.
So research has implications, or we are hopeful that there are implications that it would achieve. What are you hoping that your research in this area would achieve outside of the widow community?
So I do primarily focus on the widowed community. I also want my research to be used for people in human resources working at corporations and companies, and say, here's how you can help widowed people. Here's how you can better support widowed people, financial planners, therapists. So I know I'm still focusing on widowed people, but I'm focusing on their support system too. People who, you got a widowed person in your life, well, let me tell you how you can be a better support to them. And then also to help prepare people, because again, so many of us will lose a spouse unless we happen to go at the same time. And being able to understand the reality of that a little bit. They can't understand the reality of it, but being able to understand that you can be more resilient, and it doesn't have to be necessarily related to widowhood. You're still integrating your past. We bring all of our past with us into our present, and that's how we know who we are. That's how we got our nicknames. That's how we decided that we have Lexa on holidays, or, you heard Grandpa's story about this is who our family is, and it's all part of that. So all of these things I think apply to lots of other areas. And I'm kind of hoping too that we've made the resilience scale just available for free and said, if you want to adapt it to a different situation. It's been translated into Persian, used in Iran and Australia. But if you want to adapt it to child loss, please do, and see if you can use it to study that. So we also want to just share it with anybody who's studying trauma.
I love that. That's so important to have the support networks of people, and or HR, just we call them grief civilians, yes. Have access to that, because, and that's when Anita and I started the podcast, we initially were like, well, we don't really know what we're going to talk about other than our experience. But we did feel like we wanted to have a voice speaking to people that didn't understand, in addition to the widows. And that's so important, because we just want so badly for people to know what it's like, because it's going to happen to them or to somebody close to them. And it's hard stuff. Is there legislation that this research could help with? Have you gone that far into kind of seeing how that would affect social situations?
Not too much. I've had one meeting with somebody who was forming a special counsel for the White House, like a phone call, Zoom meeting. But and we've talked with and worked with a little bit with some military folks around here. They created a resiliency center for Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, which is about an hour from where I am now. And so the military, probably more effects like with military widowed people and support, done some work with like National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. So not legislation necessarily, but I mean, just a phone call here or there when people want to pick my brain about something.
I have maybe a dumb question, but maybe not a dumb question. When you are talking about the widowhood experience, you're speaking about widows and widowers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't woman specific.
No. Anybody who lost a person they're going to spend the rest of their life with. They plan to spend the rest of their life with.
So any partner loss.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Thank you. Any partner loss, that's a better way to say it.
So in the class that we were in, you made a statement that really piqued my curiosity. And it was basically something to the effect of, people always say that children are resilient. And you kind of took a little bit of umbrage with that statement. And I want to hear more about why you were like, whoa. Like, we shouldn't be putting that on them because it's maybe not an accurate statement.
I think it just gets oversold. It's like, oh, well, there's an assumption that they'll be fine because they're kids. And so I think the part that I take umbrage with is that we don't really need to focus on giving them tools because they're going to be fine because they're kids. And while that's true in general, we also are, overall, we're pretty resilient. I mean, humans in general, we're pretty resilient. We will find ways to overcome our obstacles, even if nobody tells you, hey, guess what? You should integrate your partner into your current everyday life. And at the same time, we can do better. And so I feel like that's kind of I think the part I have a problem with is it seems like an excuse or like a ticket to just kind of say, they'll be fine. We don't have to mess with them. Kids are resilient. Well, every human is resilient, but also let's give them the tools that they need to be more resilient. That doesn't excuse just like, well, so they're on their own. I feel like that's the implication.
Are kids more resilient than adults though? In the research, do they have more innate resilience than adults, or is it the same between childhood and adulthood?
I don't research kids very much, but from what I've read, no, I haven't seen anything that says that, kids are more resilient than adults. And I couldn't say that with a lot of conviction because I'm not totally sure.
Since you are a widowed mom, in your personal sphere, how was that for you, helping your kids with grief and their resiliency?
Well, it wasn't fun. It was interesting because Nathan, my oldest, he was almost 7, so he really did remember Shane. And my youngest was not a year and a half old, and so he didn't, even though later sometimes he would tell me stories about things they did, which he couldn't have done because he wasn't old enough to do them. But he had memories somehow in there that he had created. So I think, that was why I went at first, right? That's why I went to that class in the first place. That's why I braved college as a 29-year-old single mom. Was like, I need to help my kids, and nobody's telling me how to help my kids. And so that was my impetus for going. And I really just learned so much about having that open, I studied communication then for 10 years. Communication, having that open communication with them, not being afraid to talk to them in real terms, not sheltering. Obviously, you want to talk age appropriate things for them, but learning about, okay, but we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about dad, and we're not going to pretend like this didn't happen, and we're not going to feel bad about feeling bad, because that's the worst, right? When you start like self-policing yourself for feeling bad. So now I feel bad because I'm sad, or, so it really helped me to be able to have really open conversations about feelings and reality and how people were treating us. And like, okay, when we go to school, I'm going to tell them this about your dad. Okay, do you want to talk about that before I share this with your teacher? And respecting their little individual personalities.
So Carrie, I'm wondering if you can give us some takeaways, some things that our listeners can take with them to try and have some hope or maybe even improve on their own resiliency.
Sure. So I'm very practical. And so these are the kinds of things that I really love to talk about when we talk about research, right? Because if you can't use it, then who cares? You can't use it to make somebody's life better, then what am I even doing here? So some of the things that we can do are set small goals and then build on that, because we know that setting goals, imagining the future, trying to picture, or at least believing and trying to picture what a happy future might look like for you or moments of it, that's all related to hope. And so being able to set a small goal and accomplish it, and then set a bigger goal and accomplish it, even if that's today I'm going to walk around the block, or today I'm going to put out my tennis shoes so that I get up and do this, or today I'm going to take a shower, or, it doesn't have to be I'm going to go get my PhD. It can be, because we need to start small and build on it. So picking something that's important to you, setting a goal, making your space your own, because that helps create your sense of identity. Thinking about, who am I? Like, do I like snowboarding because they like snowboarding, or do I like snowboarding because I like snowboarding? And trying to find those pieces of yourself, really digging into who am I and what do I love, and separate from my partner. So then finding your people, right? Have your 3 a.m. person. Who's that person that you can call at 3 a.m. and they'll pick up? And it's okay. I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to who have driven themselves to the emergency room because they didn't know who to call and they didn't want to bother somebody in the middle of the night, right? But if I say, can you be my 3 a.m. person? You can be like, yeah, and I can be yours, because then usually we feel like, okay, I'm giving something back, so we're not just taking, and it makes us feel better about it. Finding a way to help other widowed people once you get to a place where you feel like you can. And then that integration piece of being able to find ways to keep things that you love from your past and bring them into your present, whether it's a tradition or a favorite dish or something.
Where can people find the Widowhood Resilience Scale? And if they want to find out more, read information about it, where can they find that?
So they can find the Widowhood Resilience Scale in the Omega Journal of Death and Dying. Came out on September 11th, 2019.
Oh, gosh.
I know.
Of course it did.
I know. It's also on the Soaring Spirits website under the research tab. There's a link for the Resilience Center, and it's over at the Resilience Center. And you can take it as many times as you want, and it gives you a score, and then it kind of gives you an idea of, here are some resources, here are some things you might want to spend your limited time and energy on.
I don't think we can stress how cool that is, that you can go take the test and then get some information about how you can improve on some of those areas that are going to end up giving you a more full and fulfilling life. Is it helpful if people fill that out still? Is it still gathering information for you?
It is. It absolutely is. And then we try to have a question of the month on there that's just a qualitative question. We're still trying to just keep getting in information, making sure we're still working on validating it against some other things. And then also, if you know anybody who is really good at creating apps and they're like, I just really want to donate some time, the ideal would be that you could go in and take it, and then on an app, and then it would give you your score and say, click here are things you can do. So I just don't have that talent.
So people can access that without having to pay.
Absolutely.
Like in a journal, a lot of times you have to pay for the for the article. Okay. Cool.
Unless you're already subscribed to the Journal of Death and Dying.
If anybody really is excited and just wants to read the academic article, you can email me at Carrie@soaringspirits.org, or my Schreiner email address. I'm at Schreiner University, and you can find my email on there. I'm happy to send it. I can send a pre-copy edited version.
Carrie, thank you so much for being here with us. It's been so great to talk to you. And we have one more question for you. So important, even more important than the Journal of Death and Dying.
Carrie, what is your favorite cheese?
Cheese. Right, I forgot. Y'all love some cheese. Well, we just had a little charcuterie board. I would say my favorite is just some good Parmesan that's like crusted with espresso beans or espresso powder. I love that.
That's a solid choice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you have loved listening to Carrie and that you have found her research fascinating and want to know more about it. Remember to check out the Widow Wives Club, where we can discuss all of the things that we just heard about. And it's a private Facebook group. Just make sure you answer all of the questions, so we'll let you in.
If you would like to support the podcast, please consider joining our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
And if you want to buy us some tacos, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww. And until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Carrie.
And we're two young widows and a fancy pants researcher in the Omega Journal of Death and Dying. And we're all just trying to figure out, widow. We do.
Now, do. I just thought I would be Yoda for a minute.
Perfect.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.